Now that you've learned about the checking process, we can go through a demonstration together. For this example, I'm using a voice-text book project, so you'll see the full text of the book on screen in EasyBooks. Once the file is opened, we begin reviewing the reader's work in multiple passes. The first is a visual check. In the Zoom control box, I click Fit in Window. You can see the whole duration of the recording. The volume looks pretty consistent here, no angry red spikes. If there were a lot of those, I might just stop checking here and ask for a re-recording. Likewise, if the volume levels were really low, with the blue waveform barely reaching off the center line, I'd also need to ask for a re-recording, but we've got a strong and consistent signal here. I do see one problem though, a long stretch of silence, right here in the middle. I'm going to have to fix that later. Since it's so long, I'm going to put a note on it now. I click and drag on the waveform to select as much of it as I can. Then I can either press the N key or right-click and choose Add Note. In the note window that pops up, I indicate what category of error it is, silence gap. Then I add some comments to explain to the reader what I've found. Prolonged silence needs to be edited out. It's a QC note because I'm doing quality control checking. I can probably fix that myself later. For now, I'll just make the note. I end the note with the OK button. Once I've finished my visual check, I'll uncheck the Fit in Window. Once that's done, it's time for the mark sweep. The first mark of every section is already done. It's 0 because we can't start anywhere earlier. I'll click the Start button to make sure that's where I am. To make the sweep, I'll press the Play button to get the audio running.
Page 3. Chapter 1. The Day of the Horse.
Every few seconds, I press the Next Mark button to skip to the next mark.
On an afternoon in 1903, long before the big car. Page 4.
I'm searching for a place where the audio and text are out of joint, where the audio jumps into the text or where the wrong text is on screen.
The horseless carriage was just arriving in San Francisco.
Well, here's one kind of error. It looks like the reader forgot to read the paragraph that goes with this mark. The mark is there, just no reading. I'm going to make a note of this omission. Since it's missing audio, I'm going to label this as a misread. I'm going to use a point note here. I'll place the cursor in the blank space, and using the N key or right-click, I'll add a note. It's a misread, and the problem is that the paragraph starting, "It came in the form of," has not been read. Please record that passage. Part of my note is an explanation of what has to be done. It's not been read, so it needs to be read. Another part, though, is some information that will help orientate the reader. It might seem obvious on an error like this, but we'll find errors and edits get pretty confusing if we don't tell a reader where they are on the page, especially if they don't have the full text and have to use a PDF. We have two different ways to do this. The old-fashioned approach is to give the page number, paragraph number, and line number. In this case, I would say the paragraph has not been read, beginning at page 4, paragraph 3, line 1. The other way is to copy over some sample text from the start of the passage. About 5 words will suffice. It's easier to do because I can just copy and paste from the EasyBooks screen or the PDF if that's my text. When the reader comes back, they can search the text with those words that I've left to zero in on that place. They can do the same with the PDF, if they're savvy to it. For now, you can use the approach that you find most comfortable, though as we use more and more on-screen text, we want to move away from paragraphs and lines and make use of searchable words. Now I go back to my mark sweep, scanning along for more errors.
And its debut was turning into one of those colorfully unmitigated. Finally, driving itself was something of a touch-and-go pursuit. The first Charles Howard saw opportunity. Automobile repair.
There's something odd. That paragraph is written to start with, "Where San Franciscans saw," but instead I hear, "Charles Howard saw." The mark makes the paragraph start late by several words. I'll click to put my cursor on that mark line. I'll make a point note here too. N key or right-click, add note. Conventions error. Mark on "Where San Franciscans saw an urban" was several words late. Mark needs to be earlier. That can also be fixed later. I'll OK the note and I'll come back to it. Once I've finished my mark sweep, it's time for detailed listening. Listening in detail. The first times you do this work, you'll need to listen to the entire section, reading along word for word. As you become more comfortable with checking, you may be able to listen in fast-forward speed, and eventually you'll be able to spot-check some files. Some projects, though, and some readers, will still require you slow things down and do a careful word-for-word check. I rewind back to the start and press the play button, listening for strange and distracting problems. If I find another omission, I'll stop and make a point note at the spot where the missing words should be read. If I hear a mispronunciation, a volume error, or the wrong words, then I'll need to stop and make a note. Errors like this call for a span note. It may seem counterintuitive at first, but span notes cover more than just the duration of the error itself. The reader's corrections need to have a natural, flowing sound. If they were to just replace a word or two, or even part of a word in a sentence, the result would be a herky-jerky start and stop edit. For that natural sound, they need to re-record a whole sentence or more.
The laws of at least one town required automobile drivers to stop, get out, and fire off Roman candles every time horse-drawn vehicles came into view. Massachusetts tried and fortunately failed to mandate that.
In this instance, the word Massachusetts has been mispronounced. I'll copy a few words right away to put in my note. I need to locate the start and end of that sentence so that I can create a span note with the right coverage. I can do that by rewinding, listening, rewinding again, and so on.
Massachusetts tried and fortunately failed to mandate that cars be equipped with bells that would ring with each revolution of the wheels. Massachusetts tried and fortunately failed to mandate.
Once I have the start and end of the sentence, I can click on the start of it and drag to the end. Or I can click at the start, hold Shift, and click at the end. Sometimes it helps to zoom in or out on the display to help isolate the span. Once I have this span highlighted, I add the note. For a mispronunciation, I explain that the word Massachusetts in the sentence beginning "Massachusetts tried and fortunately" is mispronounced. I'll also include some guidance to proper pronunciation. The best way to do this is to open up Merriam-Webster.com, enter in that mispronounced word, and then copy and paste the page address into the note. The reader gets the definition, the phonetics, and even an audio clip. You can also opt to write that information in yourself. I'll continue on to note other misreads and stumbles that same way. In the case of a volume error, I may have to indicate a whole paragraph or more that needs to be re-recorded. What's important is that my spans follow the punctuation, so that a reader has a clear start and end point to their re-recording. Now that my checking sweeps are done, I can begin to make some edits. I can click the Edit Notes button to see the list of errors I noted. From here, it's easy to see what errors I can fix myself, and by clicking on any entry in the list, I can jump right to that point. I can repair mark errors myself. I click on the note and jump to the point in the file where the mark is incorrectly placed. I know this mark is late, and I know where it belongs, so I follow the directions of my own note. I click on the mark line and drag it to the start of the paragraph. Since I've made that fix, I check it off the list in the Edit Notes window. The error has been resolved. I can correct some of the other errors as well. Silence gaps, noises, and doubled takes can be fixed by simply deleting bad audio and leaving good audio. So long as the reader won't need to come in and re-record something, then I can fix it. The long gap that I noted at the start can be deleted quickly and cleanly. I select the note, jump to that point, and then I can just click Delete, or adjust the selection a bit first if I notice that it's not an exact fit. This error is fixed, so I mark it as resolved on the note. I'll go on and do the same for other errors that are in the clear. Mouse clicks, coughs, and maybe even a stumble or two can be corrected by cutting away the error. An important thing to remember, though, is that I should never, ever, under any circumstances, delete all of the space between two marks. If marks are simultaneous, it kicks off a slew of errors. Besides, a gap like that usually means that the reader will need to re-record something that belongs there anyway, so it's best to just leave it alone. After I've gone through the list of my notes, it's time to hand the section over to the reader. I'll close the section and go on with my day. Please contact the Vault Training staff with any questions about EasyBooks, checking, or Learning Ally in general. Thanks for watching.